Hey guys! Tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. You've seen the dusty trails, the cowboy hats, the slow sunset rides. But what about the nights? The long, cold, creature-filled, sleep-deprived nights of the 1800s American Wild West. Not in a cozy log cabin, not in a saloon, but outside, sleeping under the stars, with nothing but a wool blanket, a hat over your eyes, and the howling wind for company. Before we dive into this dusty dreamscape, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where and when these sleepy stories find you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background, and let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey, what sleeping under the stars in the 1800s Wild West was like. This isn't the romanticized frontier of Hollywood or the sanitized bedtime story of cowboy heroes. This is the real Wild West, the one with mosquitoes, cold ground, and the constant possibility of waking up with a snake as your bunkmate. Imagine this. It's 1873. You're not a gunslinger. You're not a legend. You're just a regular ranch hand, or maybe a gold prospector, or maybe you're driving a herd of cattle across 500 miles of scrubland. You're far from town, the sun's gone down, and there's nowhere to sleep but the hard, uneven earth. There's no sleeping bag, no tent, no waterproof anything, just your blanket roll, a dying fire, and the knowledge that you're several days away from civilization in any direction. Maybe you rode hard all day, and your body's too sore to even enjoy sleep. Or maybe you're too busy watching the shadows shift just beyond the firelight, wondering if that noise was a raccoon or something with sharper teeth. This is how thousands of people slept across decades, from cattle drovers to Civil War deserters, from pioneers in Oregon to bandits in Arizona. Night after night under the open sky, no roof, no door, no walls, just sky above and dirt below. We're going to walk through every gritty, scratchy, back-breaking detail, from the moment the sun starts to fall to the bitter cold hours before dawn. We'll explore the sounds, the discomforts, the quiet terrors, and the deeply unromantic reality of bedding down in the middle of nowhere. So, if you've ever thought about sleeping under the stars, cowboy style, consider this your slow, sleepy warning. It wasn't all songs by the fire and drifting off with a smile. It was hard. It was cold. And sometimes, it was terrifying. So lie back, settle in, and prepare to feel the grit in your teeth. Because the Wild West didn't stop when the sun went down. It just got quieter and much, much darker. You wake up in the Wild West, and it's not a dream. The first thing you notice is the cold. It's not the kind of chill you get when you roll out from under your comforter. No, this is a cold that lives in your bones, a cold that snuck into your spine during the night and made itself at home. The kind of cold that clings to your boots, your blanket, your breath, and doesn't let go until the sun gives it permission. You open your eyes slowly. The sky above you is still dark, ink blue fading to a weak gray on the eastern edge. No alarm clock. Just the soft whisper of wind moving through scrub grass, the occasional creak of leather. And maybe, just maybe, the distant yip of a coyote wrapping up its nightly shift. You're not in a room. There are no walls, no ceiling fan, no bed frame, no gentle hum of an air conditioner. You're lying flat on the ground, wrapped in a single wool blanket that smells like smoke, sweat, and last week's rainstorm. The bed beneath you? That would be dirt. Cold, lumpy, uneven, and alive. Not alive in the metaphorical sense, literally alive. Ants, beetles, maybe something larger. Something that rustles in the bushes when it thinks you're asleep. You've gotten used to sleeping with one eye open, one hand near your belt, and your hat pulled low over your face to keep the dawn from hitting too early. There's a thin leather strap digging into your sand, your canteen still strapped to your belt. You forgot to take it off again before collapsing last night. But it doesn't matter. The ache in your hip has already been outvoted by the crick in your neck, the burning in your lower back, and that strange stiffness in your shoulder that started 3 towns ago and hasn't gone away since. You're wrapped tight in your bedroll, a sugan, they call it, just a blanket roll with a canvas cover. It's heavy, scratchy, and never quite warm enough. Inside it, you sweat. Outside it, you freeze. And somehow, you've managed to do both. Your back is clammy, but your nose feels like it's made of glass. Beneath your head is a saddle. It's the only pillow you've got, and it's shaped all wrong. If you sleep facing up, your neck bends in a way nature never intended. If you sleep on your side, the saddle horn stabs you in the chest. But you use it anyway. Because if you don't, your hat blows away, and the prairie wind has a habit of not giving things back. The ground is hard. It's always hard. You'd think after a few weeks your body would get used to it. It doesn't. The rocks find you. They move under you. They dig into the same ribs every night like they know your name. Even when you clear a patch of dirt before bed, somehow they still show up by morning. Like nature itself is playing a slow, cruel joke. You try to stretch, mistake. Your joints crack like dry twigs. Your knees complain. Your spine files an official protest. You groan softly because the men around you are still asleep or pretending to be. No one wants to be the first one up. That means you have to start the fire. And no one wants to be the one who overslept either. That means you have to explain why you're still horizontal when the cattle are already shifting on the horizon. So you lie there for a minute longer. The air is dry but sharp. Your mouth tastes like dust and old tobacco. Your breath fogs as you exhale, and a thin layer of dew clings to your mustache, your lashes, the blanket edge pulled up to your chin. You hear movement. Not close, just enough to make your heartbeat quicken. You reach slowly toward your side. Your revolver's right there, nestled beside your hip, wrapped in cloth to keep the dust out. You won't need it. Probably. But you check anyway. Because out here, things have teeth. Coyotes. Bobcats. People. You finally sit up. Slowly. Your blanket falls away, and the cold hits you properly now. You wince. You mutter something indecent under your breath, and then you look around. The landscape stretches wide in every direction. Nothing but scrub brush, distant hills, and sky. Endless sky. There's no privacy, no shelter. just a circle of other bedrolls. Men curled into themselves, wrapped in dirty wool, breathing slow under their hats. The fire from last night is a pit of blackened ash now, barely smoking. Someone will have to coax it back to life. With what? You're not sure. There's not a lot of kindling out here, but you'll find something. You always do. And just as you stand, stretching again and adjusting your belt, you step forward and feel it. The familiar, squelching crunch of something unpleasant underfoot. You don't look down. You already know. Sleeping under the stars sounds poetic, but waking up under them, that's where the poetry ends. Because out here, there's no mattress, no running water, no alarm snooze button. Just you, your blanket, your boots, and the business end of Mother Nature. And she's not always in a good mood. Still, there's a strange kind of beauty in it. The sky slowly brightening into pink and gold. The smell of smoke and morning sweat. The silence before the coffee starts boiling. You scratch at your chin. You spit into the dust. You roll your shoulders and look out toward the cattle, already beginning to stir like ghosts on the horizon. And somewhere in the distance, a coyote calls out, long, low, and lonely. The day's begun, whether you're ready or not. Rise and shine, or just rise. Shining is optional and rare. The fire's smoking now, thanks to the poor soul who got up first. Some guy who lost a bet, or maybe just had to pee too badly to keep pretending to sleep. He's crouched by the embers, hunched under his hat, prodding half-burned logs and muttering to himself about wind and kindling, and how every single branch in this cursed land is either too wet or too green. You pull yourself upright, dragging your bedroll together with hands that are stiff and dirty. Your fingers are numb, but not numb enough to ignore the sharp corners of the burrs that have found their way into your blanket again. You pick 3 out before giving up. They'll stay, like everything else. You walk toward the fire, slow and uneven, because your boots have dried into a new shape overnight. That shape is not your foot. You stamp a bit. The leather creaks, stiff as cured bark. You'd think they'd break in eventually. But here's a fun fact. You can wear the same boots for 3 years, and they'll still feel like you stole them from a slightly angrier man with wider toes. One of the others hands you a dented tin cup of coffee. Coffee is a strong word. This is brown liquid, brewed in an iron pot so scorched it's technically part of the fire. It smells like wet horse blanket and old tobacco. You sip it anyway. It's hot, at least, which is the only thing it has going for it. There's grit in the bottom. You chew it. You don't ask questions. Maybe it's coffee grounds. Maybe it's sand. Maybe it's last week's ashes. You swallow and feel something that might be caffeine or possibly a warning sign from your digestive tract. And now, breakfast. You might think it's bacon and eggs. Hollywood lied. No skillet sizzles. No golden toast. No sunny side anything. This is the real Wild West. And breakfast is beans. Always beans. Sometimes hot, sometimes cold, sometimes just room temperature and vaguely metallic from sitting too long in the same can you cooked them in. They're mashed and bland and gritty with wind-blown dust. You eat them off a tin plate if you have one, or straight out of the can if you don't. There are no forks, just a spoon and your hands. The spoon is bent. You bent it last month digging a latrine. If you're lucky, really lucky, there's hardtack. A square of flour, water, and loathing baked into a brick weeks ago. It's called hardtack because Jaw Destroyer was too obvious. You bang it against your boot before eating. If it doesn't break, that means it's still good. Sort of. Some mornings there's jerky, dried beef or buffalo, stringy and sharp as splinters. It's tough. Not chewy tough. Hat leather tough. You chew until your jaw clicks and swallow pieces that could absolutely double as boot repair material. If you have teeth left by the end of the drive, it's considered a good year. There's no fruit. Not unless it's been dried and stored in a sack so long it's now more memory than food. Occasionally someone pulls out a shriveled apple. It gets passed around like a sacred relic. Everyone takes one polite bite and pretends not to mind the worms. And water? Sure. There's water. In the canteens. Warm. Tastes like tin. Smells like the canvas bag it lives in. And if you're camped near a stream, even better. You can fill up with something that looks clear and only makes you mildly sick most of the time. You finish your breakfast without speaking, because no one talks during breakfast. There's no energy, just chewing, spitting, sipping, and the occasional muttered complaint about beans. The fire crackles. The wind whistles. Someone coughs hard enough to sound like a dying mule. Now, it's time to get clean. Well, clean. Welcome to 1800s Wild West hygiene. Population, regret. There are no bathrooms. You walk out into the brush, find a spot that isn't already too suspicious looking, and do what needs doing. You dig a hole if you're feeling optimistic. You hope no one else is nearby or watching. Toilet paper? Not invented yet. You use leaves or cloth or your hand and regret. You wipe fast, bury it faster, and pray that no scorpions were involved in any part of that process. You return to camp and wash up. There's a tin basin of water, lukewarm if the sun's been kind. You splash your face, the water turns gray. You rinse your mouth. Maybe you spit. Maybe you don't. There's no soap. If there is, it's lye-based, gritty, and smells like old bones. It doesn't lather. It insults your skin. Your hands? You rub them with sand sometimes, like a human pumice stone. It works, kind of. Mostly it just exfoliates the top layer of grime into a finer, more intimate layer of grime. Your teeth? A twig, maybe a rag. You rub, you spit, you pray. No toothpaste, no floss. Just hope and a vague awareness that someday one of these molars is going to go sour. And when it does, someone's pulling it out with pliers and a shot of whiskey. Your hair is stiff. Your skin is dry. Your fingernails are black with dirt and horse grease. You scratch your scalp. A flake falls. You ignore it. Everyone's flaking. Everyone's itching. If you're lucky, it's just dry skin. If you're not, it's lice, or fleas, or worse. You smell. Not bad. Just of the West. Smoke, leather, sweat, iron, dust, and whatever you stepped in last night when you went to relieve yourself and forgot to bring the lantern. You put your hat back on. That's your hygiene routine finished. Done. Complete. You've had your morning scrub, if you count staring at a tin of water and sighing as a scrub. You feel alive. Barely. There's no deodorant, no cologne, no showers. Just your own stubborn resilience. and the hope that the wind's blowing away from the rest of the crew. By now, someone's packing the gear. The blankets are rolled, the pans are scraped out, and the fire is being smothered with sand and spit. It's time to ride. But as you swing your leg over the saddle, you feel it again. That sharp itch just under your collarbone. You reach in. Yep, another burr. Still better than a scorpion. Nothing you wear is comfortable, and everything you live in leaks. You start your morning with the least pleasant ritual imaginable, putting your clothes back on. Now, technically, you never took them off. In the Wild West, there's no such thing as a full change of clothes. There's just what you've been wearing for 3 weeks, and the one spare shirt you use for emergencies like funerals or town visits. You're wearing everything else you own right now. Your shirt is made of wool or rough-spun cotton, stained with sweat, blood, tobacco juice, grease, and something that might be gravy from last Tuesday. It has a smell, a personal, evolving fragrance, equal parts smoke, livestock, and armpit. There are no buttons, just a string tie at the neck, and a vague understanding that modesty is optional when you're 300 miles from the nearest church. Your pants, called trousers or breeches, are made of canvas or denim if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, they're a patched-up horror of whatever cloth could be scavenged from trade or charity. The fabric is stiff. It doesn't bend. And it has the texture of old sandpaper mixed with regret. The inside of your pants is a no man's land. Chafing is constant. You've long since given up on the idea of comfort. You walk bow-legged not because it looks cool, but because your thighs gave up trying to behave politely last season. Underwear? Optional. If you have it, it's a single pair. Long johns. Wool. Itchy. White. Once. Now more of a prairie gray. You sleep in them, sweat in them, sometimes bathe in them if the stream is warm enough and no one's watching. They're too warm in the heat and too thin in the cold. They do nothing well, but they do everything just enough. Your socks are mismatched and thin. The holes are strategic now. You've memorized their locations and adjusted your footfalls accordingly. Boots? They're your lifeline. Made of thick leather, cracked with sun, salt, and time. No laces. Just pull on with a boot jack to remove them, if you even bother. Some cowboys sleep in their boots. Not because it's wise, but because taking them off might mean you can't get them back on. The boots are too tight in the morning, too loose by midday. One heel is worn sideways. The toe on the other is curling like old paper. You keep them patched with twine and hope. And then there's the hat. Your best friend. Your only friend some days. It's a wide-brimmed felt monstrosity, heavy with dust and sunblock in the form of old sweat. You use it for shade, shelter, fanning flames, swatting flies, and occasionally drinking water when your canteen's out and the creek's shallow. It's shaped like your personality now, crumpled, stained, and stubborn. Around your neck, a bandana. Red, maybe blue, but mostly brown now. It serves as your filter against dust storms, your rag for wiping off grime, and your emergency tourniquet if something bad happens. It smells like horse breath and old bacon. Your coat, when you need one, is canvas or buffalo hide, or whatever was cheapest when you passed through a fort last winter. It's heavy, doesn't breathe, and will keep you warm, right up until it gets wet. Then it turns into a frozen tarp you wear until hypothermia does its thing. Now that you're fully dressed in damp wool and trail dust confidence, it's time to consider your shelter. Spoiler, you don't have one. Most nights on the trail, there is no tent. Tents are heavy, awkward, slow to set up, and a waste of space when you're trying to haul cattle, gold, or mail. Instead, your shelter is the sky. The wide, unblinking sky, and whatever tree or overhang you can find when it rains, which isn't often, but when it does, it means business. You might stretch a piece of oilcloth between two bushes and hope the wind doesn't notice. Or you might just huddle under your saddle blanket and pray. If you're riding with a chuck wagon crew, you might have access to a canvas tarp, not a tent. A tarp. It sags, leaks, and smells like beans. But if you angle it just right, it can keep the worst of the rain off your upper half. Your feet? Fair game. In the desert, shelter is shade, a rock, a tree, the skeleton of a dead horse you once saw someone use to prop up their hat while they napped. In the mountains, shelter is misery. Cold wind cuts through everything. Snow sneaks into every seam. Your blanket collects frost overnight. You huddle near the fire and hope nothing tries to bite you while you sleep. Inside a town, maybe you can afford a bunkhouse. That's a single room stuffed with 20 men who all snore, smell like boot oil, and argue in their sleep. Privacy is a coat over your face, and the ability to pretend nothing happened when you wake up with someone else's hat on your chest. And the beds in bunkhouses? Don't expect springs. You get a wooden frame with a tick mattress. What's a tick? It's a cloth sack filled with straw, or sometimes moss. Or occasionally, we're not sure, but it's pokey. You lie down and feel every piece of it. If it's soft, it means the last guy died, and they replaced the stuffing. The pillow, if there is one, is a rolled-up coat or sack of grain. Your back hurts more after a night in a bunkhouse than it does sleeping on the ground. But at least it's dry. Probably. Now, if you're really unlucky, or just poor, you might sleep in the barn, or the livery, or behind a stack of hay bales, surrounded by rats and the scent of horse urine so strong it seeps into your dreams. You wake up with straw in your ears, your mouth dry, and a donkey staring at you like you owe it money. And yet, for all its discomfort, the Wild West had one thing going for it: the stars. Out there on the open range, with your body aching, your clothes stiff with trail dust, and your boots slowly chewing your feet into pulp, you could look up and see the Milky Way stretched from one end of the horizon to the other. No lamps, no buildings, just stars. More than you could count in 3 lifetimes. You'd lie on your back, feel the earth cooling beneath you, and let the sky remind you how small and tired and human you really were. Not comfortable, never comfortable, but honest and unforgettable. There are no easy jobs in the Wild West, just slow deaths in different uniforms. The fire's dying, the beans are gone, your socks are already damp, and your back has decided it hates you. Congratulations, it's time to start your day. Out here, there's no career, there's just survival work. What you do depends on who you are, where you are, and how badly you need the money. Ranch hand, prospector, trapper, scout, railroad laborer, cavalry private, or some unholy hybrid of all of them. You wake up every day and work until your body gives out or the sun goes down. whichever comes first. If you're a cowboy, you start with the herd, thousands of cattle, mooing, moving, pooping, constantly. The dust kicks up before the sun's fully risen. You squint against the light, mount your horse, assuming it hasn't wandered off or died overnight, and ride out. Your job is simple on paper. Keep the herd moving, keep them from panicking, and don't die. The cattle are nervous. They stampede at thunder, gunshots, unfamiliar smells, or sometimes just boredom. And when they stampede, they don't stop for anything. Not fences, not rivers, not you. You ride hard, yelling, whipping your rope in the air, trying to turn them without getting trampled. If you fall. Hope someone remembers where you landed. Your hands are blistered from rains. Your thighs burn from the saddle. Your mouth fills with dust until your teeth feel like sandstone. You squint so hard your eyes sting. And that's before lunch. If you're building railroads. You wake before dawn to the sound of shouting. Orders come down in a mix of English, Chinese, Spanish, and swearing. You pick up your hammer. You grab your spike. You line up beside a dozen other men and drive iron into the earth all day long. There's no shade, no breeze. The heat shimmers off the tracks like some kind of warning. You drink water that's barely warm and tastes like rust. Your shirt sticks to your back, then dries into cardboard, then sticks again. Your hands split. Your shoulders ache. Your hearing fades from the constant ringing of steel on steel. Men collapse from heat stroke, or exhaustion, or accident. Someone drops a rail tie. A man's foot gets crushed. No one stops. You keep working. Because if you rest, the foreman notices. And if the foreman notices, you get replaced. You're not here for glory. You're here for $2 a week and the vague promise that maybe someday you won't starve. If you're prospecting, you left civilization behind chasing a rumor. Gold, silver, copper, something shiny buried deep in the earth that might change your luck, might make you rich, might finally get your name carved into something other than a wooden marker at Boot Hill. So you dig. You swing a pickaxe into the side of a sun-baked hill. You shovel dirt. You pan creeks until your spine screams and your fingertips wrinkle like you've been boiling in despair. You carry everything you own in a sack and sleep beside your own digging like a dog hoping it dreamed correctly. Most of what you find is rocks. Some days you don't even find that. The lucky ones strike ore. The rest drink whiskey and mutter to themselves. You haven't bathed in a week. Your socks haven't dried since last month. Your shovel is your pillow. Your rifle is your security deposit. You know men who got shot over a rumor of gold. This is the work. This is the gamble. If you're a trapper, your day starts in silence. You rise before the sun and head out into the brush, checking traps that you set the night before. If something's there, you dispatch it quickly unless it's already rotting or got eaten by something else during the night. You carry the carcasses in burlap sacks. You clean them in cold streams. You skin them with hands that are calloused, trembling, and still red from the last coyote bite. You stink. Your knife is your companion. You can go days without seeing another soul, and when you do, they either want your furs or your horse. Sometimes both. If you're in the cavalry, you're up at dawn for roll call then drills, then more drills, then hauling gear, then patrolling terrain so rough it feels like it's trying to shake your teeth out through your boots. If you're lucky, you spend the day cleaning tack, tending horses, and not getting shouted at by a sergeant who thinks you're too soft to hold a rifle properly. If you're unlucky, you ride into conflict. Could be bandits, could be Indian trouble, as they call it in this century. Either way, it's rarely as noble as the songs suggest. You're underpaid, underfed, and overexposed to the kind of violence no ballad wants to sing about. Whatever your job, the tools suck. Your axe is dull. Your saw's teeth are bent. Your boots are splitting. Your gloves are holes stitched together with stubbornness. There are no safety regulations, no sick leave, no union. If something breaks, you fix it. If you break, you keep going until something worse happens. Your back? Toast. Your knees? A memory. Your joints crack like gunfire. You lose feeling in your fingers sometimes. Other times, you wish you could. And the bosses? If you're on a ranch, he's gruff, cheap, and only speaks when angry. If you're in a mining camp, he's a man with soft hands and a loaded pistol who hasn't touched a shovel in his life. If you're in the army, he's an officer who couldn't find his own horse without a map and a bugler. You don't complain, because complaining gets you replaced, or shot, or ignored. But you do dream. Every time you swing that hammer, or drive that herd, or pan that icy river, you imagine something better. A patch of land, a cabin, a quiet life. Maybe even clean clothes and soft hands. And then someone yells your name and you go back to work, because dreams are free. But out here, everything else costs blood. God watches the West. But so do ghosts, omens, and rattlesnakes with opinions. Out here, belief isn't optional. It's baked into the dust, carved into gravestones, scratched into the back of Bibles and whispered around campfires. Because when you're this far from civilization, when the nights are too quiet and the coyotes sound like demons laughing, you need to believe in something. You need to believe someone's in charge, even if they've got a dark sense of humor. Sunday on the frontier. For most folks in the West, religion means Christianity, Protestant or Catholic, Baptist, Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, labels that drifted westward along with wagons, rifles, and bitter coffee. But churches? Few and far between. If your town is lucky, there's a chapel, a small wooden box with a crooked steeple and benches that creak like they're confessing sins of their own. The preacher is underpaid, overworked, and half the time also the undertaker, teacher, or blacksmith. If you're not near a town, religion happens wherever you are. Out on the prairie, under the stars, beside a trail, a leather-bound Bible, worn smooth from sun and fingers, pages creased and scribbled on, margins filled with thoughts too personal to say aloud. Sundays are sacred, if your job allows it. Cowboys on a cattle drive might mark the day with quiet prayer and a refusal to curse. Rail crews might just mutter, "Forgive me," between hammer swings. Prospectors will kneel in the dirt beside a half-dug hole and whisper thanks or bargains, depending on how the dig's going. No pews, no hymns, just you, your hat in your hands, and a hope that maybe, someone's listening. Because out here, everyone's praying, especially when they pretend they're not. The traveling preacher. He shows up dusty, tired, and carrying everything he owns in a carpet bag and a Bible that looks older than sin. He rides from town to town like a circuit judge, holding sermons under tents, in barns, or out in the open where the only ceiling is sky. His voice is gravel. His eyes are tired. His sermons are fire and brimstone one week, and soft grace the next. He speaks of redemption, but also vengeance. Forgiveness, but also fire. Sometimes he baptizes in a river that smells like horses. Sometimes he marries a couple with dust on their boots and a shotgun at their backs. And sometimes he buries the dead with a prayer so brief, you wonder if he's just buying time until he can ride out again. People respect him, fear him sometimes, but mostly they need him, because the West is full of sin, and no one wants to face it alone. Superstition. The other religion, but belief out here doesn't stop with God. No, the West has layers. Scratch a cowboy deep enough, and underneath the prayer, you'll find a pocketful of superstition. Never ride out on a Friday. Bad luck. Something about the crucifixion. Or maybe just bad trails. Either way, if someone tries to start a trip on Friday, someone else refuses to saddle up. Never kill a crow. It's a bad omen. Crows are messengers between this world and the next. You don't shoot the mailman, do you? Drop a knife? Someone's coming. Could be a stranger. Could be death. Depends which way the blade points. Spill salt? Toss it over your shoulder. You don't want the devil knowing your name. Dream of a snake? Trouble's coming. Could be weather. Could be betrayal. Could just be a snake. But no one risks it. Coins on the eyes of the dead. To pay the ferryman. Or maybe just to keep the soul from wandering back. No one admits they believe these things. But they don't not believe them either. It's like the weather. You don't argue with it. You just act accordingly. Native beliefs. Of course, long before settlers brought their churches and circuit preachers, the land had its own sacred stories. Tribes across the West, Lakota, Apache, Cheyenne, Navajo, Comanche, each carried deep spiritual traditions rooted in nature, spirit, and ceremony. They saw the land not as property, but as living. Rivers had spirits, mountains had memory. Animals were teachers and messengers. The stars weren't just lights, they were ancestors. Their practices varied: sweat lodges, vision quests, dances that called rain, chants that healed. But all of it was woven into daily life, not something set aside for Sundays. To them, the land was the temple. Settlers, tragically and often violently, dismissed or tried to destroy these beliefs. But even so, the older ways survived, in stories, in whispers, in the quiet footprints left behind on the land. And sometimes, the two systems met. There are tales of trappers who prayed in Latin by day and left tobacco offerings to river spirits by night. Cowboys who wore crucifixes around their necks and carried rabbit feet in their saddlebags. Men who would shoot a rattlesnake, then bury it properly, just in case. The devil's country. Make no mistake, plenty of folks thought the West was cursed. They called it the devil's playground. Too wild, too empty, too unpredictable. The storms came fast. The heat came harder. Crops failed. Livestock vanished. People disappeared. You'd see a man 1 week. Here he was gone the next. No body, just blood and boot prints in the sand. Whispers spread. Stories grew. A haunted canyon where screams echoed at dusk. A prospector who struck gold, then went mad and started chewing his own boots. A child born with 2 shadows and no reflection. Most people laughed, then looked over their shoulders. Because when the wind howls just right, when the fire flickers for no reason, when your horse won't go near that ridge, well, it doesn't hurt to say a prayer, just in case. Crosses and graves, the West is littered with graves. Some marked, most not. A cross made of driftwood, a pile of stones, a faded name carved into a tree. People die here, often and fast, and usually far from home. The grave might be shallow. The funeral might be 5 minutes and a muttered verse. But the belief, the hope, that there's something after, something better, something peaceful, that runs deep. You bury your friend. You tip your hat. You speak his name so the wind doesn't forget it. Then you ride on, because there's still work to do, and death doesn't wait for you to finish grieving. Out here, belief isn't luxury, it's armor. You wrap yourself in it like a coat, a prayer, a charm, a habit. You don't need proof, you need hope, because the West isn't fair, it isn't kind, it isn't easy, but maybe, just maybe, it's watched over, even if it's by something older than any preacher can name. Dinner is beans again. But at least there's whiskey and a fiddle to make you forget that. It's late. The sun's dipped below the horizon, and everything around you is cast in that soft, burning orange glow that makes even cow pies look poetic. Your boots are caked in dust. Your throat is dry. Your shirt clings to your ribs like an old scab. You've spent the entire day either on horseback, under the sun, or on your knees fixing something that shouldn't have broken but did. And now, it's time to eat. Dinner, if you can call it. That you don't go home and open a fridge. There is no fridge. There is no home. There's just the fire, the pot, the pan, and the panhandler who calls himself a cook. If you're on a cattle drive, the cook is a crusty old man with a 1,000-mile stare and 2 teeth, both suspicious. His wagon, the chuck wagon, carries food supplies, medical kits, and usually a frying pan older than the Civil War. The menu is simple, because options are not. Tonight's dinner, beans, with a side of beans. And for dessert, more beans. If the cook's feeling fancy, he'll toss in some salt pork, fatty, chewy, and so salty it feels like licking a brine barrel. Sometimes there's coffee, bitter, burnt, and made from reused grounds. Sometimes there's hardtack, broken into chunks and soaked in coffee just to make it edible. If you're real lucky, someone shot a rabbit. If you're unlucky, the bullet went through the meat and took half the dinner with it. The food is bland, the portions are small, and the danger of spoilage is real. Meat goes bad fast in the heat. You learn to smell your supper before you chew it. If it smells off, you hold your breath, close your eyes, and chew faster, hoping your stomach's stronger than your nose. Food poisoning isn't a weekend inconvenience out here. It's a death sentence. People have died from sausage, bread, eggs, One bad bite and you'll spend the next day vomiting into a bush while vultures politely circle overhead. Still, you eat. Because hunger doesn't care if the beans are crunchy. And once your plate's empty, if you had a plate, you lick it. Not for manners, for survival. Soap is rare. Water is precious. Your tongue is the dishwasher. What's on tap? Water? If you've got it, drink it. If you don't, dig for it, or boil it, or pray over it. Most people skip the water and go straight to the real star of the West: alcohol. Out here, whiskey is king, not aged, not smooth, not legally verified in any meaningful way. It's harsh, hot, and usually made from corn, rye, or regret. Some of it is flavored with turpentine, some with chewing tobacco, some with snake oil that promises to cure rheumatism but only causes blindness. You knock it back anyway. There's also beer, but forget cold lagers with foamy heads. This is flat, warm, gritty stuff served in cracked mugs in dusty saloons. You drink it fast so it doesn't evaporate, or so the flies don't win. Saloons are the watering holes of the West. Equal parts bar, hotel, gambling den, dance hall, confession booth, and crime scene. You push open the bat wing doors, and the smell hits you. Sweat, whiskey, wood, and spilled lies. Entertainment, Wild West style, forget orchestras, libraries, or fine dining. Evenings in the Wild West are about distraction, from pain, from boredom, from the overwhelming sense that your teeth are trying to escape your skull. So you find something, anything, to break the silence. Cards are king. Poker, faro, blackjack, or some improvised version that involves sticks and yelling. The stakes are never small. People bet money, horses, rifles, watches, land deeds, and sometimes their boots. Games end in laughter, arguments, and more than once, a gunshot. Music? If someone's got a fiddle, a harmonica, or an accordion, it becomes the center of gravity. Songs range from mournful ballads about women who never waited, to drinking songs with 10 verses and no known ending. Sometimes a cowboy croons a tune so sad it makes the dogs whine. Sometimes the music's fast, messy, and full of stomping feet and shouted lyrics no one actually understands. And dancing? If there are women, rare but possible, you'll see couples dancing in boots on wooden floors that bounce with every step. If there are no women, well, 2 drunk cowboys might dance anyway, out of loneliness, out of humor, or just because someone dared them. No one judges. Everyone's desperate for movement that isn't hauling buckets or burying bodies, gambling and girls. For those with money and not much judgment, gambling offers a ticket to wealth or ruin. Mostly ruin. The dealer always wins, the house always cheats, and the guy across the table might shoot you just for smiling wrong. Soiled doves, that's the poetic term for sex workers, occupy the upper floors of many saloons. Some are kind, some are cunning. All of them are smarter than the men they entertain. For a price, they'll pour you a drink, listen to your story, and pretend to believe it. For a bit more, they'll make you forget your troubles, until morning, when the troubles come back with a hangover and a bill. Many of these women are trapped by debt, violence, or the simple lack of other choices. Some are mothers, some are younger than they should be. All are survivors. And every man who walks up those stairs does so with guilt disguised as swagger. Festivals and town gatherings. Every now and then, a town tries to pretend it's civilized. There's a church social, or a county fair, or a Saturday barn dance. People scrub themselves. Horses are bathed. There might be a pie contest. A preacher gives a nervous speech while kids throw rocks behind the schoolhouse. There's laughter, flirting, songs sung out of tune. And for a few short hours, everyone pretends life isn't just one long trail to nowhere. And when it ends, everyone goes home, back to their cabins, tents, or piles of blankets in the dust, back to the wind, the dark, the silence. Then it all fades. By nightfall, the beans settle in your gut like rocks. The whiskey burns, the music fades, the cards are collected. The blood is wiped off the saloon floor, if anyone bothers. You sit by the fire watching the flames lick the air like they're searching for a reason to keep burning. Someone tells a story. Someone snores. Someone plays the same sad song on the harmonica for the 10th night in a row. And above it all, the stars blink silently, witnesses to everything. You don't have to be sick to die in the Wild West, but it definitely helps. You wake up coughing. It's dry at first, then wet. There's something thick in your throat that doesn't want to come up or go down. You spit into the dirt. It's dark. You tell yourself it's just dust, that you slept with your mouth open again. But deep down, you know, something's not right. Because out here, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by men who haven't bathed since last rainfall, next to cattle that sneeze more than they moo, nobody stays healthy for long. Common illnesses, uncommon consequences. You don't need a major injury to die out here. All it takes is the wrong fever at the wrong time. The Wild West is a petri dish of disease, and everything wants a piece of you. There's dysentery, also known as the quick step. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. You sweat, cramp, and dehydrate until you're too weak to stand, then too weak to sit, then too weak to wake. It spreads fast in camps. One man with dirty hands can doom an entire wagon train. There's typhoid, cholera, and tuberculosis. The consumption, they call it. A slow death, a long goodbye. You lose weight, you cough blood, and when the blood comes, everyone starts sleeping farther away from you, even your friends. There's smallpox, which arrives like a storm and leaves the unlucky with scars and the luckless in graves. It sweeps through towns like a biblical punishment, wiping out families and turning saloons into morgues. Then there's scurvy caused by a simple lack of fruit. Your gums bleed, your teeth loosen, your body turns against itself. All because oranges don't grow in dust. Injury and infection. Of course, getting hurt is worse. You fall off your horse? That's a broken leg and 3 weeks of praying it sets right. No ambulance, no hospital. Just a splint made from a wagon wheel and someone telling you to bite down hard. You slice your hand on a rusted tool? That's tetanus waiting to happen. Lockjaw, they call it. Where your muscles seize, your jaw clenches, and your screams get stuck in your throat. Gunshot? Don't even think about it. There's no anesthetic, no antibiotics, no clean tools, just a bottle of whiskey, a dirty knife, and someone with a steady hand and an even steadier stomach. If you're lucky, they get the bullet out, if you're really lucky, the fever doesn't take you after. But most of the time, you survive the injury and die from the cure. The frontier doctor. He rides into town with a black bag, a tired horse, and an expression that says, "I've seen worse, but not much." He's not a specialist. He's a generalist, a dentist, a midwife, and a coroner depending on the time of day. He studied medicine, probably. Maybe he apprenticed with someone back east, or maybe he just read a lot of pamphlets and started calling himself Doc. Either way, he means well, usually. He carries laudanum, opium, whiskey, chloroform, if he's fancy. He applies mustard plasters, leeches, poultices, and prayers. He bleeds patients. He amputates. He yells at people to stop moving while he saws through their thigh bone. He's not gentle. He's effective, sometimes. But even he knows the limits. And when he walks away from your bed without saying a word, that's when you know it's over. Home remedies and desperate hope. Not everyone sees a doctor. Most can't afford it. Some just don't trust it. So they use what they have. There's willow bark for pain, whiskey for sleep, turpentine for wounds. And then there are the old wives' tales. You tie a string around a wart. You boil dandelions for your liver. You chew tobacco for a snake bite. You burn sage for the spirits. You rub lard on a chest cold and hope it doesn't attract flies. Some of it works. Most of it doesn't. But when you're desperate, belief is half the cure. People carry rabbit feet for luck, red flannel shirts for warmth and warding off illness. They hang horseshoes above the door. They sleep with onions under the bed. They do anything that feels like control. Because out here, the line between health and hell is razor thin and always moving. The fear you don't speak of, the worst part, isn't the sickness. It's the waiting. When someone in camp starts coughing, everyone gets quiet. They don't say it, but they're already measuring the distance. Mentally packing your gear, choosing your replacement. If it's bad, they move you downwind. They bring food at arm's length. They stop looking you in the eye. Because once you're sick, you're half dead already. There are no clean linens, no cool cloths, no bedside nurses, just you. Your breath rattling in your chest, your skin hot as coals, your mind slipping in and out of dreams where your mother's voice sounds like the wind. You might die in a tent, or on the ground, or in the back of a wagon while it lurches through rattlesnake country. No tombstone, no last rites, just a shallow grave and a cross someone carved with a pocket knife. And if you're the one digging that grave, you'll use a flat rock as a headstone, scratch in a name, a date if you remember it, and something vague like, "He rode hard," or "She didn't complain." Then you'll walk away, because there's always someone else getting sick. Always. But still, you hope because somehow, despite all this, people keep going. You see children born in wagons. You see old men with missing fingers still telling stories. You see mothers nursing babies with fevered hands and fire in their eyes. And when someone recovers, when they rise after 3 days of sweating and moaning and muttering nonsense, you treat them like a ghost. You hand them a cup of water. You smile, and you say, "Told you it was just dust." Even if you didn't believe it. Even if you prayed last night that they wouldn't die on your watch. Out here, death is a neighbor, not a stranger. It doesn't knock. It just walks in, takes what it wants, and leaves your boots behind. But every time it passes you by, you exhale, you thank the sky, and you get back to work. Because in the Wild West, death is common, but surrender, that's still optional. You thought the frontier was tough for men? Try surviving it while giving birth in a windstorm with no walls and 6 other kids to feed. The West isn't a man's world. Not really. Because behind every lone cowboy is a woman doing 3 jobs, crying into a dishpan, and praying the roof doesn't cave in before supper. Out here, women don't have the luxury of fainting couches and parasols. They have calluses. They have rifle skills. They have hands that can cradle a baby one moment and strangle a chicken the next. The frontier wife. She wakes up before you, always. By the time you're stumbling toward the coffee pot, she's already gathered eggs, started the fire, milked the cow, if you have one, and boiled water. Not for tea, for cleaning. Because everything out here is always dirty. Her dress is simple, wool, thick, hot in the summer, useless in the winter. It pulls at her shoulders and soaks with sweat, but she wears it anyway. Because she has 2 of them. One for work, one for Sunday. Neither are comfortable. Both are stained. She wears a bonnet not for fashion, but because the sun is merciless. Her skin is tanned, cracked, and burned. Her hands? Rough. Her arms? Stronger than most cowboys. She cooks. She cleans. She mends. She teaches. She births children. She buries them. Because yes, children are everywhere. But they don't always stay long. Childbirth on the frontier. No doctor, no nurse, no sterile room, just a bed or the floor. And whatever woman in town has the steadiest hands, it's pain, it's blood. It's hours of screaming into a rag while someone boils water and prays the baby isn't breech. Sometimes the baby lives. Sometimes the mother doesn't, sometimes neither. And even when the birth goes well, there's no rest. Because tomorrow, that same woman is cooking breakfast for 6, hauling water from the creek, and chasing a toddler away from the fireplace. There's no maternity leave. There's barely time to weep. A mother's job never ends. She feeds everyone first. Her husband eats before she does. Her children, too. She takes what's left. A crust of bread, the half-burnt side of the cornbread, the skin off the potatoes. She breaks up fights. She teaches letters if there's no school. She keeps a small journal if she can read, scribbled in pencil with thoughts she'd never dare say out loud. She keeps the house clean. Not because it can be clean, but because if she doesn't try, the rats win. She patches shirts with cloth from the last baby blanket. She boils lye soap until the whole house smells like punishment. She hangs laundry in wind that tries to rip it from the line like some divine joke. She sings lullabies at night, even when her voice is hoarse from smoke and sorrow. And if she's widowed, which is common, she keeps going, because she has to. The children of the West. They don't stay children long. By 5, they're helping, fetching water, feeding chickens, watching younger siblings, learning to sweep without missing the corners. By 7, they're working, driving cattle, tending fields, learning to shoot, watching animals get slaughtered, watching people die. By 10, they've seen more hardship than most modern adults. They don't complain. They don't cry, at least not in front of others. They know what it means when Ma gets quiet. They know what it means when Pa doesn't come home. They know how to skin a rabbit. They know how to set a trap. They know how to sew a wound shut with thread pulled from a shirt. And still, they laugh, somehow. They make dolls from corn husks. They race each other barefoot through dust. They whisper ghost stories under threadbare quilts and swear they saw a coyote walk on two legs. Their imaginations survive even when everything else doesn't. Daughters versus sons, boys are taught to ride, shoot, plow, and fight. Girls? They're taught to endure. From the moment they can hold a spoon, they're in training to become their mother. By 12, they're cooking full meals. By 14, they're raising siblings. By 16, they might already be married. Marriage isn't about love. Not usually. It's about land, livelihood, survival. A good husband doesn't beat you in public. A great one doesn't drink too much. A perfect one lives long enough to see your third child. Romance is for books, if you're lucky enough to own one. Marriage and power. Once married, a woman becomes property in most eyes. Legally, she can't vote, can't own land unless widowed, can't divorce easily. But out here, the rules bend, because sometimes the man's away for months, or gone for good. And suddenly, she does own the land, unofficially. She makes the deals. She hires the help. She defends the fence with a shotgun and a glare. Frontier women may not have had legal power, but they had practical power. They ran towns, taught children, held communities together with nothing but determination and sourdough starters. And when a woman did speak up, people listened. Because when she's buried 3 children, rebuilt the barn twice, and shot a wolf out her kitchen window, she's earned the right to say whatever she wants. Family when it works. Despite the hardship, there is warmth. There are family dinners, awkward and quiet but shared. There are quilts made by hand, passed down like heirlooms. There are letters written in shaky script, stained with coffee, sent across states to children who've gone west, or husbands who never came back. There's a photo, maybe the only one, taken by a traveling photographer. Everyone dressed in their best, faces stiff, boots muddy, hands touching lightly. Proof that they existed, together, if only for a moment. There's laughter, too, at the dinner table, around the fire, in the soft sounds of children giggling as they chase fireflies past bedtime, knowing tomorrow means chores. But tonight, they're just kids, and when it falls apart. Sometimes, families don't make it. A father dies in a mining accident. A mother bleeds out during childbirth. A child disappears during a storm, or dies from a fever no one could treat. And the family shrinks, becomes a silence, a gap at the table, an empty bedroll, a name scratched into wood and planted in hard earth. There's mourning, but it's quick. Grief has to move fast out here. The firewood still needs chopping. The animals still need feeding. Tears fall into the stew pot, into the wash basin, onto the stitching of a baby's dress that will never be worn again. And still, life goes on. Because it must. Because the land doesn't pause. Because the West doesn't wait. Family out here isn't about comfort. It's about survival. It's about building something fragile in a world that breaks things without apology. But when it holds, even for a moment, it's the strongest thing this land has ever seen. The sun's high, the shadows are short, and the west is getting mean again. It's mid-afternoon. The fire's gone out. The beans are just a memory, and the day's heat is sitting on your back like an angry mule. Your shirt sticks to you in ways nature never intended. Your boots are filling with sweat. And your patience? Running dry. This is when the real trouble starts. Because in the Wild West, the afternoons aren't just hot, they're hard. The work never ends. You're still working, of course, mending fences that coyotes ripped through, dragging water from a well that keeps threatening to run dry, chasing down a steer that broke loose because someone didn't latch the gate right. Again. You're swinging a hammer or digging a ditch, or trying to fix a wagon wheel that's split in two like it just got tired of trying. There's no shade, no breeze, just you, squinting into the glare, wishing for rain, or maybe just a moment of peace. Your back aches, your knuckles bleed, and someone keeps yelling, whether it's your boss, your partner, or just your own brain. But you keep going, because the work's not done, and it never is. Fights over everything. In this heat, even talking feels like a risk. Tempers get short, real short, like gun barrel short. You can feel it at the blacksmith's. Two men arguing over a busted shoe and who was in line first. You see it on the range, hands getting red in the face because someone forgot whose branding iron was whose. And in town? Forget it. Saloon brawls break out over spilled drinks, bad poker hands, or just looking at someone the wrong way. You throw one punch, then it's fists, boots, chairs, glass. Someone always ends up on the floor. Someone always ends up bleeding. If you're lucky, no one draws iron. If you're not, well, then the undertaker gets work early. Out here, violence is punctuation. It ends arguments, it solves disputes, and it usually starts new ones. Law and order, but mostly chaos. There is law, sometimes. A sheriff if your town can afford one. Maybe a deputy. Maybe a judge. Maybe just a guy with a badge and a limp who used to be tougher than he is now. The law is spread thin. Thinner than creek ice in April. There's no jailhouse most of the time. If someone causes trouble, they're thrown into a locked room if one exists, or just tied to a post until they cool off. And if someone really steps out of line, well, that's when the rope comes out. Frontier justice, they call it frontier justice. Sounds poetic. It's not. It means mob rule, a posse, a rope, and a tree that doesn't ask questions. If someone's caught stealing horses, harassing women, or gunning down a man in the street, the town doesn't wait for a trial. The trial is held in whispers. The sentence is carried out before the dust settles. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they don't. Plenty of men have been lynched for crimes they didn't commit, just because they were in the wrong place or had the wrong skin or made the wrong enemies. But the West doesn't apologize. It just keeps moving. The unspoken rules. Social conflict isn't always loud. Often it's quiet, tight, tense. Everyone knows the rules, even if no one wrote them down. White men get served first. Women speak softer in town than they do on the prairie. Black folks, indigenous folks, Chinese immigrants, they stay to themselves, not always by choice. They build railroads, they run laundries, they tend herds, they do the work that needs doing. But when trouble starts, they're the first to get blamed. The saloon might not hang a sign, but the message is clear. Know your place. And stepping out of it, that's a gamble with your life. The other conflict's afternoon doesn't just mean fighting with your neighbor. Sometimes the struggle is inside. You sit on a fence rail, staring at the distance, and your thoughts creep in like wolves. Why are you still here? Why is it so hard? Is this land ever going to give back what it's taken? You remember a child you buried, a wife you left behind, a friend who disappeared and was never found. You remember the sound of gunfire, the feel of sickness, the face of a man you saw hanged last week and can't forget. Out here, you don't get therapy. You get whiskey. You get silence. You get work until your hands forget how to tremble. But the thoughts still come, especially in the heat. When nothing moves but the flies, when no one's around, when your shadow looks too long for comfort. This land doesn't just break bodies, it pressures your mind until you crack or bend or harden into something unrecognizable. The land itself fights you. Let's not forget, the West isn't neutral, it's hostile. The sun tries to cook you by day, and the wind tries to freeze you by night. The land goes from drought to flood in a week. Dust storms roll in with all the grace of a freight train, stripping your skin and choking your lungs. Rattlesnakes hide in tall grass, scorpions under your boot. The river rises too fast. The canyon collapses. A bridge breaks. A horse goes lame. A fire starts because someone dropped a lantern. You're not just surviving people. You're surviving the wilderness itself. Every single day. The end of day brings no peace. By late afternoon, everything hurts. The work is done, for now, but your hands are still clenched, your jaws still tight, and you're looking at the sky like it owes you an apology. Maybe you won today. Maybe no one died. Maybe the fight didn't come to your door. But you know it's not over. It's never over. Because in the Wild West, conflict doesn't need a reason. It just needs time. And time? There's still too much of it before nightfall. You don't sleep in the Wild West. You wait for the morning and hope it shows up. The sun's gone now. It didn't so much set as it fled, leaving behind a sky that turns from blood orange to ash gray, then finally to deep inky black. And just like that, it's night again. But out here in the Wild West, night doesn't mean rest. It means risk, and because in a land where even the days try to kill you, the nights don't bother hiding it. No walls, no doors, no lock. You're lying in your bedroll again, on dirt, under stars, wrapped in a wool blanket that smells like damp socks and regret. There's no roof, no lock, no warning. Just open land stretching in every direction, and shadows that move when you're not looking. You shift, you listen. You don't close both eyes. The fire's burning low, not low enough to sleep easy, just low enough to make you wish you had more wood, more warmth, more comfort. But out here, comfort is a fairy tale, and fairy tales don't survive the prairie. The night is alive. At night, everything gets louder. The creak of a saddle left too close to the fire. The snap of a twig 30 yards out. The low moan of the wind dragging across dry grass like a ghost that forgot where it dumbed. Your mind fills in the blanks. Was that a fox? Or something bigger? A coyote? A wolf? A man? Is someone out there? Why are the horses restless? Why does your skin feel like it's crawling? You reach for your revolver, not to shoot, just to have. Your fingers close around it like it's a prayer made of iron. You're not paranoid. You're prepared. Because night is when people die out here, and everyone knows it. Firelight can't reach everything. The fire only lights a few feet in each direction. Beyond that, the dark swallows everything whole. It's not like town darkness, not even like forest darkness. This is prairie darkness, empty, open, endless. You can see stars, thousands of them, too many. They almost feel like they're watching. There's no moon tonight, just starlight and memory. You lie there, eyes wide, blanket pulled to your chin, and you think, if something comes for me, I'll never see it in time. And you're right. That's what keeps you awake. Fear of man. Animals aren't the only danger at night. Sometimes it's other people. Bandits, drifters, deserters, men who got tired of the rules and decided to write their own. You hear stories. A man who slit his bunkmate's throat for a can of peaches. A whole wagon train that vanished. Tracks gone, supplies scattered. Not a single survivor. A lone rider seen near camp 2 nights in a row. And then nothing. You pretend you're not afraid. You crack a joke. You roll over like you're going to sleep. But your hand never leaves the gun. And your dreams, when they come, are short, sharp, and full of teeth. The fire dies. Eventually, the fire gives up. It always does. Just like your energy. Just like your trust. The cold creeps in now, quiet and smug. It starts at your toes and makes its way up your legs like a slow rolling fog. You shiver. You pull your hat lower. You breathe into your hands. If it's winter, you might not sleep at all. If it's summer. The wind brings bugs. The air feels heavy. The ground radiates heat like it's been saving it up just to make you miserable. No matter the season, you don't rest. You wait. Until the east glows again. Until you hear someone else stir. Until a rooster crows in the distance or a horse shakes off its blanket and snorts in the dark. Until the fear loosens its grip just a little. Sleep, when it comes, when you do fall asleep, it's sudden. Not peaceful. Not slow. Just gone. Like being knocked out by the weight of your own exhaustion. You don't dream of flowers, or home, or warm beds. You dream of falling off cliffs, of getting chased, of forgetting your gun. And if you wake up screaming, no one says anything. They've all done the same. Nighttime tragedy. Every camp has stories. A snake in a boot. A rider who didn't come back. A scream in the night that nobody could explain. A barn catching fire. A horse shot by accident. A child taken by illness between sundown and sunrise. Sometimes someone just slips away in their sleep. No sound. No struggle. just cold in the morning, and silence where there should have been snoring. Death loves the quiet, and the West has plenty of that. Graves by moonlight. Sometimes there's no time to wait for daylight. A man dies during the night, and by first light, he's already buried. You dig fast. The earth is hard. The shovel is dull. The cross is made from scrap wood. Maybe a fence post. Maybe a wagon spoke. You whisper a name. You bow your head. And then you walk away. Because there are no priests, no processions, just the wind, the dirt, and a few men too tired to mourn. The weight of night. You lie awake. You stare at the stars. And you feel it, that weight. Not physical, not emotional, existential. You're a speck, a dot in a land so wide and so wild, it could swallow you whole and forget your name by morning. No one would know. No one would come looking. You're alone. Even in a crowd, you're alone. And that thought, that deep clawing truth, is what keeps you awake more than any wolf or outlaw. And yet, you're still here. You haven't run. You haven't given up. You face the dark every night with open eyes and clenched fists, and the kind of stubbornness that doesn't come from strength. It comes from necessity, because the West doesn't give you peace. But if you make it to morning, it gives you another chance. And sometimes, that's enough. You made it through the night. You made it through the West. Now, let's finally rest. So here you are, back in your bed. Maybe not on the prairie, maybe not under the stars, but still holding on to the weight of where we've been together tonight. You felt the cold of a Wild West morning, the ache of stiff boots and sleep stolen by rocks. You've choked on trail dust, chewed bland beans for breakfast, and scrubbed your face with water that smelled faintly of livestock. You've pulled on clothes made of scratchy wool and sweat, rode into long days filled with broken tools and harder people, and watched the sun hang heavy over a land too vast to conquer and too wild to tame. You've worked endlessly, with cracked hands and tired knees. You've heard stories whispered in firelight. You've tasted fear in the stillness of a midnight breeze. You've been sick without medicine. You've seen friends die from fevers, bullets, accidents, each ending too fast or far too slow. You've held silence like a shield, carried grief in your boot soles, whispered prayers that maybe reached the stars, or maybe just disappeared in the wind. And through it all, you kept going. That's the quiet legacy of the West. Not triumph, not gold, not glory, endurance. Survival wasn't guaranteed. Comfort was a myth. But still, people woke up, walked on, planted things, buried others, kissed their kids and lit another fire. It's easy to forget that the West wasn't made by heroes. It was built by ordinary people, toughened by weather, bent by work, softened only by the rare gift of laughter or music or love scribbled in a letter that took 3 months to arrive. The women, raising 6 kids in one-room houses with no plumbing and no praise. The men breaking their backs on land that didn't want them there. The children carrying buckets too heavy, asking questions no one could answer, learning to survive before they even learned to write. And through it all, they built a life out of nothing. Scraps of wood, bits of hope, cold coffee and calloused hands. Sometimes it was a life only they understood. Sometimes they didn't live long enough to understand it themselves. But the land remembers. The scars in the rock, the rusted tools still buried beneath prairie grass, the faded names carved into headstones or scratched into barn doors. They're still out there. And when the wind blows just right, you can almost hear them. A lullaby in the distance, a boot scuff in the dust, a story never finished. And now, here in the stillness of your room, under your own roof, with the hum of electricity or a fan, or the steady breath of someone sleeping next to you, you can finally let it all go. Let the aches fade. Let the dirt rinse off. Let the sky above the west grow dim and quiet behind your eyelids. Because you don't have to ride tomorrow. You don't have to boil beans. You don't have to sleep with one hand on your revolver or pray the coyote keeps its distance. You're safe now. The dust has settled. The boots are by the door, and the world has softened. So tonight, as you drift off, remember, you don't have to wake up in the Wild West. Sleep well.